What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Tremain Show. I'm Tremain Davis, and today we're going to be talking about doing things that don't scale. Doing things that don't scale. And now, listen, that is a conversation that becomes a little bit tricky when it comes to building a business, because when you do things that don't scale, that's literally taking the time out of the CEO's day to do stuff that you know for a fact that you can't do down the line because the company has just gotten too big or it started to grow. And once a company starts to grow, the CEO just can't do the same things that he used to do. But on the early stages, when you're really validating that customer, this is pre-product market fit. So this is before you've actually hit product market fit. We've talked about that term a little bit throughout the life of this channel. And product market fit, again, is if you find that customer, you've identified a problem that customer has, you've identified this group of people that you can service in a really, really efficient and good way, and now you can scale with that customer. Like, that is product market fit. Now, if you're before that, listen, you're trying to find it. Product market fit is kind of like the holy grail when it comes to building a business. When you have an idea in your head, when you first getting started, the main thing you're trying to do is validate that idea, find out what somebody needs, how you can solve that need, and how you can do it for a lot more people. Like, that's what it's all about. Like, that's what you're really chasing. But before you get there, guess what? Sometimes the CEO has to get down and dirty. Sometimes the CEO has to go out, and sometimes the CEO has to do things that just don't scale. So Airbnb, everybody has heard of Airbnb. They are a great example of the whole doing things that don't scale thing. So the early days of Airbnb, now this is, for the young people out here, you may not remember the early days of Airbnb, because you only know Airbnb as this monstrous, multi-$50 billion company, but when they first got started, I don't know, 20 years ago now, the CEOs had to do some things that didn't scale, all right? So if you know about Airbnb, you know that average person, average Joe, if they have extra space inside of their house, they can photograph this space, they can put it on Airbnb on the website, on the site, and then random strangers can go onto the site, look at the space and say, hey, I'll rent this space for a day, 2 days, whatever time frame they need. And then that allows them to be in an area so that they don't have to get a hotel. Generally, it's cheaper than a hotel. It's in neighborhoods. It's much more, locked into the culture of the places that you're visiting. Generally, the host or the person who owns the space can give suggestions about good restaurants to eat at. Like, that's what Airbnb is all about. It's about that community. It's about building, ties and building, relationships with people who are locally on the ground in the places that you want to visit. So that's what Airbnb is all about. All right. The problem, and this is early on in Airbnb's history, is that the owner has to photograph their space. And they have to take these photos, put it onto Airbnb's site so that other people can now look at those photos and say, hey, I'll stay there. Instead of staying at the Hyatt or staying at the Hilton, or staying at the whatever hotel, the Microtel, oh my gosh, I'll just do this Airbnb. It seems much nicer. It's in a better neighborhood. The place looks okay. The people seem nice. Like, let's go with this option. Now, if the pictures on the website don't look that great, then guess what? It doesn't look that appealing to the people who are looking to rent the space, all right? So that was a problem that the CEO and the owners of Airbnb first encountered when they first started Airbnb. What they realized is that the owners are not photographers, and they were putting crappy photos up of their space that just weren't inviting. It didn't tell the story of the space or the neighborhood or anything. So somebody from Wisconsin was looking at somebody's Airbnb offering in Massachusetts. Of course, they don't know anything about the neighborhood, the room, anything. They just have to make a decision based on these pictures that they see on the website. So if the pictures aren't that great, guess what? Nobody's going to want to rent that space. This became a big problem that the owners of Airbnb recognized. So what they did is they got a targeted area. This is the owners, the CEOs, and this is the current CEOs of Airbnb as a $50 billion company. When they first got started, they went and knocked on the door of the people who had listed places on their website and said, hey, We'll take the photos for you. Wow. We see that you just listed your photos on Airbnb. We're the owners of Airbnb. We'll take pictures for you because we really want you to have great pictures so that people will want to stay in your place. And so literally the first batch of customers, I think they started in New York City, the first batch of customers in New York City, like the actual owners of Airbnb, the ones that are the owners today, actually took all of those photos personally themselves to list onto their websites. Now that is the definition of doing things that don't scale. Because guess what? Airbnb is a $100 billion company now. There's no way that the owners of Airbnb can go to every single customer on Airbnb and take all of their pictures. They knew that they wouldn't be able to do this going forward, but that is the definition of a CEO, of a founder, understanding that we've got to do things that don't scale today so that we can have a chance for our company to gain traction tomorrow. Because right now, the problem is that the pictures on our website look crappy and nobody wants to rent a space that looks crappy from the pictures. Again, you don't know anything about this area, you don't know anything about the house, you don't know anything about the owner, you're just really going based on the pictures. So if the pictures don't tell a better story, guess what? They'll never get a chance to rent their space. So they went and they got professional grade pictures from all of their early customers onto their website, and it made a huge difference in the success of Airbnb. So if you think about your company, all right, let's now that was a great case study. That was the example. That's Airbnb. Everybody's heard of Airbnb. That's why I wanted to use them as an example. But let's think about that in terms of your company. What things can you do right now to engage with your customers that may not necessarily scale? It is going to be time consuming. It is going to be something that may not be something you can do into the future. It may be something that, you're trying to figure out, like, why would I do this? But this is what really gets buy-in, really gets trust from your customers, really gets you to understand your customers in a way that you just wouldn't have understood before. So, in my companies, and, I've mentioned this before, but I run a couple of venture-backed tech companies, like, we've had to do things that don't scale. So we've got customers in New York City, and, this is for my ed tech company. And literally, I've had to take countless trips to New York City just to knock on the customers' doors. And we work with school districts. So to go to the actual schools and actually meet with the principals and say, hey, what can we do to make our service better for you? Now, this is not something that I'll be able to do a year from now when we've 10x'd our customers, but it's something that we've had to do up to this point so that we can really understand the needs of our customers. So if you think about your business, like, how can you engage at that level? It really builds trust if your customer says, wait a minute, you're the chief strategy officer? Wait a minute, you're the CEO of the company and you're coming to talk to little old me? And you can say, yes, I really want to understand what your problem is. I really want to understand why you bought our product, why you bought our service. Why did you do it? Here's the thing about Airbnb. Here's the thing. They knew that, so Airbnb was not the first to do this. There were like 2 or 3 other actual firms that were doing the whole rent your space out and let other people who are strangers stay in your space. There's one really big one called VRBO. And they've got commercials out and everything. Of course, they've tried to ramp up their business as Airbnb has gotten big, but VRBO was out way before Airbnb was, and there were a couple others. So they knew, here's the ownership of Airbnb. They knew that if they took really, really, really good photos for their customers to put onto their website, they knew that their customers were going to take those same photos and list them on the other services. So it's like they were doing things that don't scale to help their business, but they also knew that it was going to help somebody else's business. But in the interaction, in the engagement of them doing that with their customers, they were able to get insights that they just wouldn't have gotten, that no other company got, about how to get these customers excited about renting their places out and how to get the users of Airbnb to be excited about staying at other people's places. So that's what that level of engagement got to do. So if you're a founder and you're thinking about how can I get really close to my customer. You may have to do things that don't scale, and that's a one-to-one level. You may have to go just knock on a specific customer's door, take them out for coffee or lunch, and just ask them questions about why they use your service, what good did it do, what problem did it solve, why did they pick you versus the others that are offering services in your space. These are things that as a CEO, trust me, it will be a game changer in terms of the things that you learn. And I can also guarantee you that probably many of the other people that are in your space, your competitors, aren't doing these things. So that's what doing things that doesn't scale or don't scale, meaning doing things that you can't do at a big level. You can do this when you're just getting out of the gate, when you've got 10 or 20 customers, but there's no way that you could do this when you've got 300 customers, 3,000 customers. But on the early stages, it's always good to think about how can you do things that don't scale, do things that you can't do on the next level, so that you can get much better insights from the customers that you're serving. All right, so I wanted to talk about that today because guess what? It is an important piece of the journey. Don't skip it. You have to take a minute. You have to take a period of time as you're building your company to literally do things that don't scale. Get in front of that one customer, those 5 customers, so that you can really understand how your product or how your service is solving a problem for them. All right, I wanted to talk about that today because it's important. I'm glad you all tuned in. I'm Tremain Davis, and I see you all in the next one. Peace.